Oh, there he goes.
Big Sky Howdy, and welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. Today, we have a repeating guest on here, coming down from Northeast Ontario, Canada. And we're going to be talking in the second part of the show about some of the stuff that he's found this summer. He's got some pretty nifty pictures to share with us of some Sam Squatches that weren't too fast at getting the hell out of the way and actually got caught on camera.
Yeah, that's a lot of land out there.
Oh, yeah, just millions of acres. Western Montana, 52 mountain ranges. No, not too much to look through.
You probably drive by 100 Bigfoot clans or more driving to Freeman's area.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, you'd go across so many other territories and be like, well, why am I even going there? Look at that giant X structure. Let's just stop here.
Yeah, well, I mean, for history's sake, I mean, I would if I was in intent.
It'd be fun to find the exact spot where he actually filmed it and find the little creek and then, go up the embankment and stuff. And, here's where he filmed it and all that kind of stuff. It'd be equally cool to find where the Bauman and Jessup incident from Teddy Roosevelt's book, The Wilderness Hunter, happened, which is also dang close to here, right on the other side of the Bitterroots. And some people have claimed to have found the exact spot. And we actually are in contact with a person who spent 30 years being a ranger over in that area who thinks they know pretty much exactly where it is. And they say those that claim they have been to that spot are mistaken.
Mistaken? You mean the Bauman incident?
Yep.
Oh, right. Well, that'd be interesting. Well, I know there's YouTube videos out there of different research festivals where they go to a general area. Probably that area's all changed now.
There's been a bunch of changes, including that, one of them actually caught on to this. They changed the original name of the river. So if you didn't go figure out by looking at an old map that, that's what they were calling this river. It's now called this, and it's not on the map anymore, and that's why you can't find it.
Yeah, that throws a lot of people off. Well, I guess with expedition's over, river's gone.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they're on the wrong. Most of them went to the wrong side of the river because of that.
Yeah, well, with the Freeman site, I think you can get close to it. Just like the PGF, it's all changed now. You could parachute into the middle of the PGF film site and not know it. You'd be close, but you wouldn't know. Oh, wait, that's. Unless you could identify something on a tree or whatever, you wouldn't know you're right where Patty took off across the sandbar. You'd probably just, okay, I know it's around here somewhere. But same thing, you go there and 25 years later, it's all going to change, right? The growth's going to get bigger, or some things are going to die. The creek could be bigger, it could be dried up.
Although that would be an epic way to start out a Bigfoot TV series, have the crew on the ground right in the spot where they film Patty, and then have the host parachute in and land right there on the sand. It was here over 50 years ago when they filmed Patty running across this sandbar. It had most of the same sand on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the Freeman site, you know, it's a little bit more common, you know, a little creek, you know, what didn't have any big identifying landmarks like the PGF site. But with Freeman footage, you can learn a lot from the Sasquatch and how they behave and how they disperse and hide on people. And if you can study it, you learn why they're so hard to get footage of, because she stops and stands still, and he loses her with his naked eye right in plain sight. Yeah. So, you know, you're trying to film these things that are like naturally almost invisible because of their camouflage and their strategic intelligence.
That's one of the things I absolutely love about that piece of video, is because it clearly demonstrates how something that's 8 frickin' feet tall can just stand still, and you can lose track of where it is until you've actually experienced that. Like, how do you explain that to somebody? Well, fortuitously enough, Paul Freeman filmed it.
Yeah, and he accidentally filmed it too. I mean, he filmed it on purpose when he seen it, but then he still was filming it when he couldn't see it anymore. And then, as I said a little earlier, that when he was starting to look right, she moved off left because she was watching his reaction, and she could see that he lost her in the foliage there. He couldn't see her. So then she was watching him turn more right, and she moved off left with the infant on her back. But you know, we were talking about the site. I want to interject that I think I know Finding Bigfoot didn't really cover Paul Freeman, but they did have Meldrum on the show, and I think they were standing on a road where they talk about one time Meldrum visited his area, and Freeman said, "Oh, would you like to see some fresh tracks?" And Meldrum was really skeptical of that, and then he said, "Well, yeah, right up here. They crossed the dirt road, 2 of them." And then they went down the little ridge. So he took them. I don't know who else was with Dr. Meldrum, but went up there. And so Meldrum was skeptical, and he gets out. He starts examining the prints. He goes, "These are really good. These are really good. They're authentic. These aren't hoax. It's just this guy's just a natural at finding evidence." And so what turns out is later on, Dr. Meldrum, he bought Freeman's entire cast collection because they're so good that he wanted to make sure that they were put away for safety. Yeah, that's right.
And he paid $2,000 for it. It wasn't just like he went and gave him $10 or something.
Yeah.
He paid $2,000 to preserve that collection.
Maybe it was $1 a cast or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, Meldrum, here's a professor or associate professor, maybe it's professor, that he was so impressed with the legitimacy of his cast collection that he bought all of them. And like I said, unfortunately, Good Morning America did that to him just to appease the crowd and the people watching that, you know, Bigfoot's just a joke and it's just hillbillies looking for them. They turned it into a spoof like we've seen before, where, you know, the reporter interviews a scientist with like 10 times the education and knowledge of the reporter or the journalist. And then the scientist leaves, and then the reporter will say, "Well, I guess we'll never know," or, you know, they'll make a joke about it. And it's, in a lot of ways, it's insulting because, you know, they just talked to a very smart man who's willing to risk his credibility and everything, and then they turn to the camera and they joke about it. But, you know, it's just a joke that the Sasquatch scared off half the campground. And you know what? You know, that kind of story, you see how the media puts a funny spin on it just to alleviate the concern at home that, yeah, Sasquatch are real or they aren't real, if that's what your belief system is.
Well, you know, in the mainstream, there really isn't any actual journalism anymore. That disappeared a long time ago. And most of these news celebrities, you could train a trained monkey if you could teach it how to talk and put it in a 3-piece suit, and it would be just as smart. These guys really don't have any journalistic integrity whatsoever. They're reading off a teleprompter. They're repeating whatever their corporate masters tell them to say. And if they say, oh, Bigfoot story, well, you can run it, but ridicule it. Okay, boss, you got it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's pretty much how it is in corporate media, right? I remember myself, just not such a big media outlet, that I showed a journalist, can you see this picture? Can you see this video? Can you see the Sasquatch in him? Yes, yes. It went to his editor, and the editor refused to run the story because he didn't want to offend his sponsors or the conservative readership. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a total money not scam, but that's what they're doing. They're trying to sell commercials. They're trying to attract people. They don't want to offend people, and so the breakthrough of our century is being stymied because mainstream media won't cover it because they're worried about their paychecks.
Yeah, and they're also worried about getting in trouble with the government, the part of it that doesn't want this coming out, which, you don't have to look into this very long or very hard to figure out that that's going on.
Oh, yeah, big time. And I often say this when I talk to people. You know how it is you're a Bigfoot researcher, and you meet people who are on the fence, or they're in the no camp, and you say, you do a little breakdown. Well, first of all, one gets spotted at a campground. The first thing that's going to happen if you go to the rangers is, no, what you've seen is a bear. If you scare the rest of the campers with a story about Bigfoot, then we're going to make you leave, and maybe even slap some charges on you, because the park rangers got the same authority as state troopers or OPP. So you not only get threatened to be quiet, but you might get charged, and worse things can happen. We all know about those kind of cover-up stories. But the other thing I say is that, I tell people about the money thing, that, like I just said, that a lot of places won't run Bigfoot stuff. Well, probably because the way it's been joked about, and Hollywood makes monsters out of them, and like that. But mostly because they want the most readership in them that they can get. So they're not going to run something that's going to scare away 10,000 followers if there happen to be conservative Christians who, according to their church, Bigfoot doesn't exist, or whatever reasons, they're just anti-Bigfoot. I know certain bookstores, you go in, they will put Bigfoot books because it doesn't fall in line with their belief system. But yeah, the main resistance is coming from the scientific camp, where it's getting better and better every year. But the main resistance is these guys won't talk about it. They won't endorse real footage or real casts. So the media goes to those guys first, and it gets debunked before there's any even investigation. And then
it's debunked by people that have an agenda, are going to lose their paycheck if they say anything positive about it, have never looked into it, and know nothing about it.
Well, yeah, that sounds like, for examples of that, just research the PGF and how much resistance Patterson had to go through, where some of the scientists got up and walked out, or whatever. They had that kind of attitude, when they were doing a quick breakdown. Well, that can't be real because it has white feet. Well, yeah, the Osterman pads, but also because it was wet feet walking through the creek in light-colored sand, or
okay,
they just they used their knowledge about a gorilla and thought they knew everything about Sasquatch.
Right. Well, scientists can be forgiven for having their doubts about a rodeo cowboy getting footage of an upright hominid walking around in the woods. What's their excuse with John Bindernagel, who's an actual scientist, is doing actual research, is issuing papers, and they refuse to even look at them? That tells me that they've got an agenda, and they got their heads severely wedged up their butts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I've talked there. Actually, Doctor, I don't know how much time I got left, but I talked to Dr. John about the Freeman footage. But you're right. He had trouble getting his papers reviewed because it was about the unknown hominin, or the bipedal creature that isn't being studied in North America. And he had one of his books, I think his last book or his first book, he was asked by his publisher, might have been the last one, Discovery one, that not to mention the PGF because it would poison the sales of his book, because people automatically assumed that was a hoax because that's what the media told them.
That's pretty sad. Well, anyway, before we close on Paul Freeman, I want to give a salute to him and to his memory and to the great work that he did, and that he managed to, all by himself, get some video like that, and also get some track documentation and stuff, really good ones with dermal ridges that Dr. Meldrum still has in his collection. And I just really think he's one of the Bigfoot pioneers that we actually should be paying attention to and giving some credit to. And I agree with Blayne 100% on that line.
Oh, yeah, well, what I say is Patterson proved they were real, and Freeman proved that you could habituate or film them and get out alive. They're not monsters. So Freeman did a lot for Sasquatch Field as far as the educational curve, and I'm really appreciative of that.
Yep, me too. So my salute, my hats off to my now sadly departed neighbor over there in nearby Washington State. Salute, Paul Freeman.
Yeah, he contributed a lot. So maybe later on or next time we'll get into some of my research, which I learned a lot from watching Freeman's footage and somewhat Rogers.
Well, let's talk about it right now. You sent me some pictures and stuff. Although you haven't been having a particularly great summer, you've been out doing some stuff too, and you've gotten a couple of really nifty pictures. Maybe we can at least cover those.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the marsh, the Bigfoot I got.
The marsh picture, yeah, and then you got a picture of that big female ducking down in the grass.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll do the marsh one first, I guess. I was driving through this area a lot, little dirt road, no traffic on it at all. You can spend hours in there and not see another car. And one time I seen what I thought was a Sasquatch, but out on this pond, kind of where it jets out a little bit. And so I kept going back around trying to get a chance to take a picture or a film. So anyway, I was out with Robin, Moonshadow there. We went out in July, and I just took that shortcut again, and I was driving up the road, and I thought I seen one duck down behind a cedar tree, like, go from a higher branch to a lower branch, get lower to the thicker branches or something. So we pulled over. I did some filming around. We went up the road, not even 50 yards. We heard a wood knock, and then Robin was looking for prints, I guess, one side of the car, like going back the road the way we came. And I walked up on the road a little bit and took a picture of the pond where I seen the other one. I was looking at the area where I seen the other one. And only about 30 yards away was probably the same Sasquatch, almost out in clear open, kind of hunched over, watching me take the picture. So that's pretty cool. I got that one.
That's extremely cool, and that's another good example of what we talk about quite a bit. It's the juvies that screw up and let you get their picture. And this one was like, what do you figure, 6.5 feet, maybe?
He was my height, hunched over.
Oh, okay, so he was bigger, 7.5 maybe.
Yeah, maybe a 7-footer. You lose a foot, maybe ducking down.
Yeah.
I went back and I did follow-up shots and make sure you have those. And then as far as my quest to kind of film Patty or film another Paula, I've been going by an area where I know they like to come in, and this just off a quad trail, and certain areas I don't go into because I want them to just get used to me, like Paul Freeman, and I'll just try and film or take a picture on my way by. And so I got a picture of a huge one, maybe a 10-footer, trying to hide and look like only 3 feet of grass. And I think she stuck her head behind a sparse scrub tree, but you see this huge body kind of laying profile on the ground. And so I got that picture.
She's
And then
so huge that when you did the crop on it, it's like you accidentally cut her feet off in the picture.
yeah, she's a lot bigger than, because her foot went down into the grass, and as the angle of the leg gets lower and lower to the ground, the grass got thicker, so I couldn't really see where the foot probably ended up. But I could have cut like easily a foot off the length of her leg and her foot. So I got that picture, and I keep an eye on that because I'd like to get some footage, but I'm not going to chase after them and then have them leave the area. And then another time, I was on the quad trail, and I was going by where a bit of a junction, and I heard this big blue jay call, like coming from like a 2,000-pound blue jay.
Wow, bionic blue jay, cool.
Yeah, the Steve Austin of blue jays.
Yeah.
So
$1 million blue jay.
Yeah, cue the $6 Million Man music. You know. So anyway, I was just scouting, and all I had was my cell phone, and I only had like a 4x zoom. So I went up the trail a little bit more. I wanted to get away from the 2,000-pound blue jay that let it rip right when I was going by him off the quad trail, like within 10 feet of me. So I went up to where there was a boggy area, not boggy, but where, I don't know, quads ripped it apart. And so there's water that would make the area muddy. And I seen a bunch of kind of boggy prints. And so I just pushed through part of the scrub on the north side into an opening where there was more boggy prints. And I took a picture of an area that had this really weird black shape in the middle of it. And then because it's daylight and you can't really see your cameras, so later, like while I was still there, I went into the shade or back to my car, and oh, geez, that's a big female. So I was right with noticing the shape, and I sent you a bunch of crops of her with a huge sagittal crest, and she's watching me between the parting of a couple cedar branches. When I went back, she was gone, and I thought I'd seen big shapes of other ones in the trees. That I guess the males were on their job that day, because she was gone, and there was other ones in the trees just inside the tree line in the shade, ready to greet me for getting too close to the female with infants.
Well, at least those guys don't get drummed out of the Sasquatch Union.
Yeah, I mean, they must be in a better union, like,
better. It's a better local chapter than the other one, apparently.
Yeah, all the dues must be paid up or something because they're doing their job, and there was 4 of them. I could see 4 silhouettes inside the tree line, just where the big female was. The female was out in the open in the light, but there was a couple branches across maybe the torso. And one like kind of was above her head, but you could see her shoulders, her head, her looking right at me. You could see her brow ridge, her gray skin, and a huge sagittal crest. And I think she might have an infant on her shoulder and maybe one behind her just crawling on her. And that's why her sagittal crest looks so big. Or it could be just natural, could be just the size of it. But if I had to guess, I thought she was a 10-footer, 10-foot tall female Sasquatch. And I guess I'll come that side up here.
We have noticed from observation from researchers that get to see some of them in certain areas that they, it doesn't seem to be a gender-specific thing. It has to do with their size. So big females or big males will have the sagittal crest, is what it seems like.
Oh yeah. Dr. Krantz said that when he was correcting his colleagues, that how can it be a real Sasquatch with a female breast when it has such a sagittal crest? And he said, no, that's a size feature, not a gender feature. And yeah, so this one that I got the snapshot of, it's got this huge sagittal crest, and she's actually taller than me sitting down.
Oh God.
So.
Oh yeah, well, I got face to face with that one that was in the driveway when I was walking down in the dark when I was a kid, and he was sitting on his haunches with his knuckles on the ground, and he was the same height as me. Yeah,
so you got to add their long legs to the equation, and next thing you know, you got a 1,200-pound Sasquatch mad at you because you got too close to the kids. But I went back there a few times. I tried to cast some of the boggy prints, but it gets shredded by the grass when you're lifting them.
Yeah.
Pulls them all apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to talk about that. That was my, I mean, I'm sure I've ran into females before. I just couldn't tell. It wasn't so obvious, but that's my little small contribution to the big female take with Freeman and Patterson being lucky enough to catch females in the open and then filming them. And mine, they don't run. I guess I'm just not scary enough or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you need to wear like some kind of a Halloween mask or something to really freak them out so they run and you get some video of them moving.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm not carrying a rifle and they know what rifles do. They may not understand the mechanism, but they know rifles are instruments of killing or whatever their thought process is. And I've actually stumbled in, well, not stumbled in, but walked into an area where I came upon a shelter and they were still there. And while I was in there, this very large animal with a huge lung capacity started huffing and puffing at me. And it kept going and going, and I was backing away. I got too close to the shelter because I was curious, just not expecting them to be around. And then you can hear it huffing and puffing in both my camera and the audio. And I think I sent you a link for that. And so
yeah, we've actually got the audio of that. So let's take a break here and listen to that for a second.
A deer. I seen something black moving over there. Shit, I don't have any bear spray. I don't have my knife with me. I'm just right over the hill there. Get up. it's definitely a shotgun. Is that just a deer or something snorting? It looked black. And gonna look gray. Okay, so I'm going to continue that way. Strange when I started hearing it once I went into that little structure thing.
Listen to that for a second. So that's some pretty creepy stuff, man. If I was out in the woods by myself and I had something nearby huffing and puffing like that, I'd be wondering what the hell it was.
Well, yeah, and you're expecting, maybe it's a romantic thing. You're expecting them to be picking berries, but you break through the tree line. You're covering your eyes because the branches are right at your face, and then you're upon the setting of a clan or a group of them, just like Freeman did with his. And next thing you know, you got this reaction. And what actually saved me was in the distance, a hunter fired off 3 shots. And the big female who I was having trouble picking up where she was hiding, but she was close enough, she stopped huffing and puffing at me after she heard the hunter's shots.
Oh, that's the human equivalent of a Bigfoot howl. Gunshots.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
he's got friends nearby and they got boomsticks. I'll shut up now.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then I noticed the tension was gone too. So I was able to, I didn't go back through the tree line. I just went towards the hydro cut. You can see where the clearing is. So I just went to the opposite end and I went by them and around them to get away from that situation because I didn't want to impose on, making them all fearful because a human got too close, right? So, yeah. I don't mind getting clips of them, but what's the point of filming them if you get your head ripped off or something?
Yeah, that getting stomped into the ground by an angry alpha male is definitely not on my to-do list. And like you're saying too, I mean, you may get lucky one time and get some good video of them, but at that point, you're going to piss them off. They're just going to leave the area and you're never going to get anywhere near them again. And you can't trick these guys with the same trick twice. That never, ever works. They figure stuff out way too fast.
Oh, yeah, that's why I use different techniques. Getting that more if we do part 2. But I got a technique, as I mentioned, where I just walk by. I don't try to interact with them. I just take a picture and I lead them to their area. I got techniques where I get in close. And I kind of stopped doing that because I started running into too many dangerous encounters, like branches being broken right beside my head and being bark shattered onto my head and shoulders. So I pulled away from, yeah, I know. I pulled away from getting that close to them. So I'm trying
Some
to
experiments probably should be skipped, like the one where Rich snuck up behind the tree, poked his head out, said peekaboo, and promptly had like a 150-pound log hurled at the tree and got bark splattered all over his face from it.
Yeah. So you flip open your notebook and you check off bad idea, or don't repeat.
Bigfoot does not like peekaboo.
Yeah. So I'm constantly altering my techniques, and some of it's just to be safe because I'm unarmed, and the Sasquatch have no fear of us up here. Nobody's shooting at them. They got lots of land to wander off. They don't have to fight us for territory or anything. But yeah, so I modify my my approaches for different areas. Some areas I just watch from a distance. Some areas I walk through. Some I get right in and I interact a little bit. But a lot of my research was technique. I didn't listen to what other people were doing. I didn't take their techniques. I just kind of started from scratch from studying the Freeman and the Patterson footage.
Right on. Yeah, I noticed that you're getting ready to gear up and go do some mountain giant research now, but the local Canadian Imperial Troopers took your equipment away before you could get out in the field with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think that tank would have been quite big enough to stand up to a mountain giant anyway. It's probably a good thing they confiscated it. You'll need to get a bigger one.
Yeah, I know that. What's wrong with having your own little mini tank? I just don't see why that they'd have a problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's needful equipment for a Bigfoot researcher. We have a reasonable reason for needing these things.
Yeah, it's like running into the First Order or something from Star Wars.
I know. God, they got all uppity when I wanted to put an anti-aircraft gun on my tank, and I was like, dude, Thunderbirds, who's going to research them?
Yeah, I mean, wow, it's kind of touchy. I mean, some of these Sasquatch get pretty big up here, so, you got to get their footing vehicles.
Yeah, I was going to do a GoFundMe to try and get enough money to buy an old World War II vintage German tank that I could use for mountain giant research, but...
Oh, right. A Tiger. You want a Tiger tank?
Tiger 2. Yeah, I figure the armor on that should be pretty much crush-proof. But yeah, they're shipping costs to get one over here. They weigh 72 tons, and they're not exactly plentiful. So yeah, kind of thinking I'm probably not going to get the research vehicle I really want.
I imagine getting parts for that would be too kind of hard.
Yeah, we'll have to get a local machinist make them for us because you're not.
Yeah, well, you're running into all those Super X's, so you got to watch out that they don't use one of those as like a club on your vehicle, right, and bash it into the ground.
Yeah, honest to God, buddy, finding tracks and tree structures and stuff is really exciting, but everything has its limits. And when you find an X structure that's like, we don't even know how tall it was. We never got the whole thing in the frame of the picture. What we did manage to get with me standing underneath it was 6 stories. I mean, it's kind of like there's limits on how big of stuff you want to find, and beyond that, it's like, I don't know, Godzilla lives around here or something. I'm leaving.
Yeah, well, you have to be careful when you only get from the feet up to the mid torso of the Sasquatch standing beside you or in front of you. You're overreaching.
Yeah. Yeah, you turn around and you see the Bigfoot's shin. That's when you realize that you're where you shouldn't be.
Yeah, you're leaning up against its kneecap and you're looking for the nice, convenient 7-8 foot tall one, and there's a giant one that you mistake for a tree.
Yeah, exactly. That's what always worries me. Something like that's going to happen. So, it's really a thrill to find stuff like that. But when you start finding stuff that big, it's really, it switches over from being thrill into terror category pretty quickly. And you don't really want to hang around and document. You just kind of want to get the hell out of there.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like that Jurassic Park quote from the doctor guy, the guy with the Jeff Goldblum. It all starts out hooray, and there's laughing, and then it goes to screaming.
And then there's the blood and the screaming and the horror. Yeah, exactly. That's the point I'm making.
And then there's screaming and running and dying. That always gets in the way of making a good Bigfoot video. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why when it gets to the point where it's like, oh, that's really impressive and scary. Let's leave now. I don't want to go through the part that's coming right after this with the screaming and the running and the blood and the dying, and no.
Yeah. I mean, that always gets in the way, And well, then you get questioned, why didn't you film that 15-foot monster chasing you? You could have ran forward with your camera facing backwards and film it, chasing you while you're jumping logs and avoiding.
You could have duct taped the camera to the top of your head facing backwards while you were running away from it.
Yeah. Where's the GoPro footage? Come on. It's and you realize you got to cut your losses and come back another day when the situation looks a bit dangerous.
Yeah.
But,
my theory on the whole thing, and this is true, is that no matter how good a footage you get, people are still going to say it's fake. They're still going to say, you're crazy and you're a hoaxer and blah, 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 blah. So why the hell would you want to risk your life? Because no matter how good a footage you're going to get, people aren't going to believe it's real anyway. So that really doesn't motivate people to want to risk their lives to get great footage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's what I was saying just about the resistance there with the different factors, the government and media and that we can only do what we can with our off-the-shelf cameras, and now the cameras are getting better, but there's such a wall of resistance that, it's baby steps, but it doesn't help when the community keeps beating itself up. Group A gets some footage, and then C and D and B appreciate the footage or are neutral, and then from E to Z they attack it because it's not their footage, right? So I mean, it doesn't help when we're all like fighting each other to be the next Roger Patterson, when you know what, there's only one Roger Patterson or Paul Freeman. They already got the footage. Yeah. So we should just work together and try to convince more of the science community to get on board instead of spending all our energy fighting each other. That sure would be helpful for the community if people would put aside their petty jealousy and just stop attacking everything left and right because it isn't from their own group.
Well, I agree, and there's a positive and a negative way to do everything. I mean, like on the positive side, Thinker Thunker. He takes a piece of video or a picture or something that he thinks is probably valid, just rips it apart, does a great job of dissecting it, looking at every aspect of it, puts together a video. Here's my opinion on it. Here's what I think after I've looked at it. And generally, unless he's being pushed by all of his followers to go cover this one, he's just picking ones that he thinks are probably valid. And so he's explaining why he thinks they're valid. And then there are other people in the community that take people's videos and they rip them apart and they claim every frickin' thing that they show is fake. Everybody is fake. Everybody's a hoaxer. Most of these people have no background to work with. They don't know anything about Bigfoot. They've never seen one, and they don't know doodly about cameras either. But they're going to sit there and say everything is fake. Everybody's a hoaxer. And what do they end up doing? Well, they terrorize the community. So people don't want to come forward with their Bigfoot evidence and show it to anyone because they're afraid these same people are going to take their evidence and rip them apart and call them liars and hoaxers in public. You know what? The best way to get rid of something, if you really don't like it, is to ignore it. If you ignore it, it goes away. If you pay attention to it, you bring more attention to it. Okay? So first of all, if you really think something sucks that bad and you want it to go away, just ignore it. Secondly, the only reason you're doing this is for clickbait so that you can get views for your channel. And thirdly, you're a Bigfoot terrorist because you're trying to get people to quit showing their evidence and quit coming forward with it. You're what's wrong with the community.
But, I mean, we got these pioneers who put it all on the line, and we got other people out there in the woods. I do all my research pretty much by myself. Occasionally, I'll have a guest or someone, and I'm out there with my means available to me. There's my camera and everything like that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's one step forward, two steps back, and we got to stop doing that because we should be, as far as general knowledge, way further ahead. And I talked to Bindernagel about this on my channel. The first video you go to is the Ontario Sasquatch Conference. I called it, where there's my family and him and his wife and whatever else, a few people around, and my daughter was asking him, well, what do they eat? How do they make tools? And he's saying, well, that's where we should be right now, but instead we're still stuck as whether or not they exist or not. And he said the people who know have moved on, but it's just a lot of resistance. And actually, with Bindernagel, I had lots of conversations with him with Paul Freeman footage, and I was telling him things I seen with the footage and how I see similarities with the Patterson footage, and we had some good off-camera debates on that, but that's a story for another time. But I miss Dr. Bindernagel. He was kind of a Grandpa Joe or grandfather, or kind a guy you could go to, the go-to guy, and I guess Meldrum's like that. But you know, that was a big loss for the community. Him and losing John Green in recent years.
Yep. Yeah, and let's not, forget about old Grover Krantz. He was an incredibly important figure in the Bigfoot community because he was pretty much the first scientist that jumped on board and went, wait, there's evidence here. Let's stop and look at it.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, he was the first PhD, I think, to maybe there might have been some silent ones that were following, but just didn't want to put their face on camera, their name, their reputation on camera, saying, yeah, there's something to this cripplefoot. I mean, it takes a real genius to figure out that the whole bone structure would have to be set more forward to handle weight like that. And therefore, this one had a cripple incident where it got crippled, and he broke it down where, it's not just a cutout of wood making these prints. These are real creatures moving around North America, and they need to be studied. Not, like you said, people being shamed or terrorized off of coming forward with stories in their videos.
Yep, it's unfortunate that that's what we have to deal with in the so-called community, but hopefully people will become aware of it and they will stop going to those channels or giving them any attention, because they are holding back Bigfoot research. So with that, is there anything else you wanted to let everybody know, update from the summer or from the last time you were on that's happened?
Oh, well, usual efforts, print here, print there. I got those pictures. I had a really short summer because of the weather and back injury, but a lot of activity will be coming up now in the fall, and I'll get back to you if I got anything
right on.
worth
Well,
mentioning.
let everybody know, the name of your channel and stuff so they can stay in touch with it too, because obviously as now it is fall and things will be moving around and you're in better shape so you'll be able to get out there and do something. You will undoubtedly be finding and posting stuff. So where do they go to find it?
Oh, well, Blayne Tyler or Finding Sasquatch. I know I borrowed the name from that other popular show, but I just thought I'd show people how I do research, and as opposed to walking around knocking on trees every 5 seconds and shouting into the woods, like challenging you for your territory. So
in more recent times now, you've got your own research base, the Bigfoot Barn. So that's one of the other.
Oh yeah, that's true. The Bigfoot Barn Show, the best Bigfoot Barn Show on YouTube. The only
Absolutely. One. Well, it's by far the best one since it's the only one. Even if there was a competitor, you might still beat them. Because that barn almost looks like it wants to fall over, and yet you manage to have a base of operations in there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we gotta tough things out up here. Soon I'll get enough money for repairs. I don't know, but hey, I want to thank you for having me on the show again and talking about the icon Paul Freeman and his contribution to the Sasquatch field research community.
You're very welcome, brother. Thanks for coming on the show again. I like to do updates with the field researchers that I've had on the show before, because you guys regularly find stuff. And this time was no different. You've got more cool pictures to show. So I'm glad that you would come on and share those with everybody. And beyond that, I'm glad that you approached me with the idea of doing a show about the 25th anniversary of Paul Freeman getting that footage, because it is very important to the history of Bigfooting, Sasquatch, and for, people that are interested in the subject to know the history of how all this is coming together, because at some point this will be a documented known species, and then you can go back and go, well, where did all this come from? This guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, in this order. And he is one of the very important links in that whole chain that will hopefully lead eventually to recognition of the Sasquatch critter as a real, obviously living flesh and blood creature. And so thanks again for being on the show, man, and we'll have you again back here probably later on this fall after you get out there and get some more stuff, which no doubt you'll get.
Oh yeah, I'll keep plugging away, but my pleasure, and thanks for having me on, and hello to all your listeners, and don't forget to support Duke's great show. He's an independent like me, so if you enjoy these kind of shows, and we sure do appreciate the support. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, brother. And on that topic, as long as you brought it up, if you do want to support the show, you can send your support to paypal.me/World Bigfoot Central. If you want to support indirectly by taking care of your battered, beaten, and bruised body, which, hey, how many of us have that? Me and Blayne raised our hands. Go to myctfocbd.com/Duke Sullivan to get efficacious CBD products and 60-day money-back guarantee. If you have a cryptid sighting to report, if something bad happened to you, if a Wendigo ripped the top off your hunting shack while you were in it, or something like that, you can call. Deb is standing by, 503-662-2678. And if you need to reach me directly, you can do so via email. And I am at worldbigfootcentral@yahoo.com. All right, that's all the news. That's the wrap up. Everybody, remember, don't punt the puck, would you? Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't flip off the mountain giant. And for God's sakes, whatever you do, do not hug the Wookiee.